COVID-19 continues to change the way we do things, and in the agriculture industry, it is no different. At the onset of the pandemic, the tourism industry was shattered, and the agro-producers who supplied those resorts and restaurants felt the pinch.
COVID affected, I would say, our farmers in terms of, we would say, well, there was a market contraction because we lost the tourism sector. A lot of our producers was going to the tourism sector.
Many of those who became jobless returned to their roots and to farming communities.
Due to COVID, the whole world recognizes the importance of agriculture, in that economies have struggled, and most of all, people have struggled now to put food on the table. And as such, the agriculture sector became of summa importance. Many people who are working in the tourism sector lost their jobs, and in other sectors, people lost their job not because of choice, but simply because COVID struck. But these persons were faced with the everyday question: how do they put food on the table? So many of those same persons had agriculture background. They decided to return back to farming in order to put food on the table. And as a result, we are now seeing an increased number of farmers, new farmers. And then those existing farmers, because of this demand for their produce, decided that they would ramp up their production. And as such, for this year, we are projecting that there will be an abundance of food being produced in Belize.
Those commodities are specifically carrots, onions, and potatoes. And while there has been an increase in persons heading to the markets, Belizeans are not only eating greener, but the kinds of produce consumers are seeking has also changed, not to mention the price.
Last year, there was the change in dynamics as to how we eat. Food became part and parcel of medicine. And everybody started to remember ginger, they started to remember vervain, fever grass, and all the other herbs which at some point in time they were hardly looked at or were never used before. So in that regards, we have changed. Today, the price of ginger is almost like $10 a pound. Or in some places, 14. So you know that there is a strong demand for this item because it helps, or it is perceived to help mitigate the effects of COVID.
Although you may think that an increase in the number of farmers means there is less to go around, it is quite the opposite. CEO in the Ministry of Agriculture, Food Security and Enterprise, Serval Abaiza, says that it has actually made the country become less reliant on imported goods and more food secure.
When you look at the actual consumption of the local people, I guess closing down the borders also helped our farmers to a certain extent. You saw that the consumption of beans went up, consumption of rice went up. I just got a report like yesterday, for instance, that the consumption of beef, one of our processors was saying that their consumption of beef also went up. So you see that in some areas we say maybe we lost some of the demand, but in certain other areas it did go. People have to eat. Who will put the food on the table? That can't stop. So you saw that the agricultural sector was very resilient, continued producing and continued to supply our people with food. So food security is very important. So if the biggest lesson that in terms of agriculture, if you want to ask me, what was the biggest lesson in agriculture, is that we have to make sure that we invest in agriculture. We need to make sure that we have a strong agricultural sector that can withstand any kind of disaster.
COVID-19 presented the need for food security.
When you look at the reports from FAO and so on, the biggest concern was food security, because countries who do not produce their food were in serious problems. Thankfully, here in Belize, we are self-sufficient in all our basic grains and in our meats. We are self-sufficient, and that helped us tremendously.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.